Howdy, and welcome to the first official season 3, episode 1. I'm your host, Jared May. It has been a journey, and I'm excited to get this new season under the way. New logo, all this different stuff added to it. We get a website. I just want to tell you a bit about what I've been up to since our last episode during the Super Bowl. I've been working on some intro songs, which I released a kind of an unfinished sneak peek of what our intro song is going to be sounding like for the podcast episodes. I've done some really cool outros for all of our content that'll be pushing out. There is an official website underway. I hired a professional to help me out with that. And so all this stuff's going to be coming into play. And if you haven't seen it yet, we launched our crowdfunding platform, Patreon. So that's just kind of your way of really joining in on the action and tailoring this podcast to your liking. But this podcast is releasing today, Monday, March 10th. Happy birthday to myself. Yes, I just thought it was a good day to kind of kickstart season 3, where in the off season of the football fall season, we get to talk about things that maybe aren't just about sports. We can shatter the script on practically anything. And so you're kind of going to get the best of all worlds in this episode. We're going to be doing a little bit of shattering the script on the NFL offseason with free agency. We're going to be doing a shatter the script segment on the MLB and ESPN television breakup, if you will. And then I had some two kind of fun segments to go through my top 5 sci-fi movies. I asked Grok on X to tell me what I should rank my top 5 in. So they gave me sci-fi and I kind of expanded on it a little bit. But I'm going to make it fun. I'm going to do my top 5 sci-fi movies without using Interstellar, because I'm sure that's in everyone's top 5. So that'll be interesting. And then I'm going to do a fun segment every single time I'm hosting this show in this sort of capacity, and that is asking Grok on X to name me a random athlete, and I blindly rank them in my top 5 as best I can. So it could give me a crappy one. It could give me a good one. Hell, they could name Jeff Francoeur. They could name Rafael Furcal. They could name, Chase Claypool with Pittsburgh Steelers. It could be anybody. Random athlete, rank them top 5. So we'll get to that. But we're going to open up the podcast, of course, with the Shatter the Script statement and segment. So this is talking about kind of the teams and organizations, those front offices, their loyalty to NFL players, NFL veterans who have given their blood, sweat, and tears to their teams just to be traded or not to be paid, and kind of like the truth behind the lies with that argument. Because you see all the time that athletes aren't given or paid what they deserve, but then at the same time, you could argue that they're greedy. But then you get players that had a revival for a certain organization or team, and those guys are then put back to the streets because their loyalty to a young quarterback that was drafted the year prior, they didn't expect the one that they signed, the veteran, to kind of come in and prove himself as worthy. And so I'm going to go into a little bit of that with some certain player examples. So let's kick it off with that. And, when you're listening to this too, I'm going to try and do my best to kind of bring factual evidence and historical context to my argument to truly shatter the script on it. So NFL free agency kicks off around March 12th. Right now, I think everybody's in the business of franchising and releasing and cutting certain players. We've had some kind of blockbuster retirements and trades already. There's a couple of defensive linemen for the Cincinnati Bengals. Sam Hubbard retired at the age of 29. He was a very good, above average defensive end for that club. And then at the same time, they're working out a deal to trade Trey Hendrickson, who is another fantastic edge and interior rusher for the Cincinnati Bengals, on a team that had by far the worst defense in the NFL. Their plan is to franchise tag again T. Higgins, and then at the same time get rid of 2 valuable defensive members of their team. Kind of a strange strategy to get better as a team, I would argue. And so the new league starting March 12th, like I mentioned, and we're looking into the myth of loyalty to veterans. Now, here's the narrative. Teams reward players who've bled blood, sweat, and tears for the franchise with long-term security or graceful exits, if you will. And the reality of it is, in my opinion, is that front offices basically cut bait when production dips or the cap hits the balloon, if you will, regardless of their contributions. Now, you've seen this a lot of times. I would say it's most common with wide receivers. Wide receivers are going to be the most grimy. They're going to be the most greedy. They're going to be the most, like, with their contracts and what their value is to the team. And because a lot of times they're out there running cardio and they never think that they get the touches that they need. They think they need running back touches where it's 15, 20 targets a game. Well, there's 5 receivers running routes almost every play on a pass play. So it's really hard to find that one guy open every single play. And so oftentimes they get greedy naturally. I mean, I'm not even trying to gripe at them, but the market pays wide receivers a damn good amount of money. We've seen this with CeeDee Lamb's contract. We've seen it with Justin Jefferson's. We've seen it, I called it. Brandon Ayuk gets paid $30 million, and now San Francisco 49ers are looking at that contract and going, yeesh, I think we might have regret this. And then dishing off Debo to the Washington Commanders, who have the largest cap space, or one of the largest cap space in the NFL heading into the offseason. So they have to take in that dead money of, I believe, close to, I think it's over $20 million, but don't quote me on that. And so, a current example of this, to kind of paint a narrative, Sam Darnold, he's bounced around from the Jets to the Panthers to the 49ers, kind of riding the bench, now gets a chance to play for the Minnesota Vikings in the 2024 season while the Vikings drafted J.J. McCarthy, the rookie out of Michigan. And J.J. McCarthy goes in and tears his ACL, and he looked pretty spectacular in the preseason, which I understand is just preseason. But then in comes Sam Darnold, and everyone's kind of had like this high ceiling, high potential hope for a guy like Sam Darnold, maybe a chance to revive his career with weapons like Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, and they acquire Aaron Jones. They get a really good defensive coordinator, literally turned a defensive unit that had names that you can't even, like, if you're watching this episode, you probably can't name any Vikings defensive players. Yet they were a top defensive unit with Brian Florence at the helm. However, Sam Darnold comes in and throws over 4,000 yards and 35 touchdowns. And so now you're looking at it as like, well, crap. We were looking at it as like a one-year bridge kind of guy, hoping to get some service out of him, get his confidence up, and then let him go back into free agents. But we weren't expecting Sam Darnold, who has had a really bad, unlucky start to his career, pop off and basically almost be in the conversation for MVP, to be a front runner in their division, in a division that was by far the best in the NFL, the NFC North, with the Lions, the Packers, and the Bears. And so you head in the offseason, there's rumors, is he going to be re-signed? Is he going to be let go? Well, now they're coming out and saying that they do not want to re-sign Sam Darnold, which kind of showcases the ability to be loyal to somebody that you drafted to give him a shot. And extending Sam Darnold would then kind of put drafting J.J. McCarthy in disarray, because you're probably going to be extending Sam Darnold for 2 or 3 years. J.J. McCarthy probably doesn't, out of the first-round draft pick, doesn't want to sit the bench for another 2-3 years waiting for his chance like Jordan Love did with the Aaron Rodgers experiment. So then the rumor speculated, well, if we're going to keep Sam Darnold, then we got to trade J.J. McCarthy. So essentially, the Minnesota Vikings opted out of all of that and said, we choose to keep J.J. McCarthy, invest in this young man with this young, talented offense that we have built around him, for him, that just happened to so work for quarterback Sam Darnold. Let's let Sam Darnold test free agency, go to the market, maybe get a good price, and end up in a good team and organization to continue his career. But we're sticking with J.J. McCarthy. That's a really tough decision to make. as a GM, as an organization. Then you kind of flip the script and you got the Cleveland Browns and you got the Seattle Seahawks. The Cleveland Browns have arguably, and it's a very kind of a one-sided argument, if you will, the best edge rusher in the NFL. And I went in on shattering the script with Myles Garrett when he requested a trade in the previous episode and of the last episode of season 2. And Myles Garrett, man, constantly putting up all-pro numbers every single year. And the Browns don't want him. The GM talking about like meeting with him and discussing like a good landing spot for Myles Garrett, and they're honoring his trade request. And Myles Garrett has talked about he doesn't want to play a number of games unless he's traded. Like he's willing to sit out and kind of hold out. He wants out. And he wants to win football games. And the Browns are in complete disarray. They're completely torn apart. They don't know what to do at the quarterback spot. They don't know who they have at the receiver spot. They've got running backs that are injured, and I believe like guys like Nick Chubb might hit the market. And so they're kind of cutting ties, right? Myles Garrett, he's probably going to land with a team with a large salary cap that can pay him. Rumors have speculated he might go to the Eagles, but anyway, the loyalty to people that have like a veteran like Myles Garrett, you would think an historical context example of that would be Joe Thomas. You spend all these years producing all-pro numbers and you didn't win anything. And that's a failure by the GM and the organization to provide a winning platform behind a top-tier caliber player for 10-plus years in the NFL. So they're basically saying, we can't give you what you want. Go test the market. And we don't really want you here anymore because we don't find you to be a difference maker for this club. And obviously that's a bunch of crap. If you built a team around Myles Garrett, you could probably win a couple of games. Hell, Kevin Stefanski was awarded Coach of the Year once or twice while Myles Garrett was on the team, and they shuffled around quarterbacks and whatnot with Baker Mayfield back in the day. And then I look at the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks are unleashing everyone to different teams, to free agency. So DK Metcalf has requested a trade. Basically, with DK Metcalf, he said, I've seen the market price for wide receivers, and I want to be paid market price. The Seattle Seahawks said, no, that's not in the cards for us. So then DK said, I want to be traded. Geno, I want to get an extension. I want to play for the Seattle Seahawks for the rest of my career. I would like to be paid, the Kirk Cousins price or the market price for a 3-year extension. The Seattle Seahawks said no and traded him for a 3rd-round pick to the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, Geno Smith getting to play in a dome where he has a quarterback rating of 116.1, goes to play in Las Vegas under his former coach, Pete Carroll. The Seattle Seahawks took care of him in that regard. I mean, I would absolutely argue that they did the right thing and saying, well, we can't pay you. We don't want to pay you, but we'll let you go play for your former coach, Pete Carroll, in Las Vegas under new ownership, minority owner, I guess you could say, Tom Brady. Now, what the Raiders are going to do with Geno Smith at the helm at quarterback, I'm not sure, because there is a ton that the Raiders need to rebuild over there roster-wise. I think they just re-signed Max Crosby, the edge rusher, to a good contract as well, so he's staying there. Something that the Cleveland Browns might have wanted to take advice on and follow in that kind of footsteps. Tyler Lockett for the Seattle Seahawks was cut and released. So now almost your entire team that you built, that you now just kind of scooped in this new coach into the system, they're cutting ties with everybody. So now what? With just Jackson Smith and Njigba on the wide receiver arsenal for the Seattle Seahawks, like where do you go from here? And they still have a talented group at running back with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, like a Smith JSN, Jackson Smith and Njigba. They got a decent O-line. They traded for Sam Howell back in the day. So what I'm getting at with this is that these roster moves are quite interesting because you get to evaluate the difference between loyalty to young talent and the disloyalty to veteranship that have contributed to the success of your team and the relevancy of your team, and basically saying, if your production starts to dip or we lose leverage based on your contract, you're gone. We don't care. And it goes back to say, and like the Shatter the Script segment is essentially that it is a business. And the jersey sales and the merchandise and the Pro Bowls and the media, and we got DK Metcalf here, he's a top dog and all that kind of stuff, but we're not going to pay you top dog price and you can hit the market and we'll let you go play for another team. We will do X, Y, and Z for you, but the second that you demand what you're worth, and it's not against, it's not leveraged in our favor, you're going to be gone. We're going to get rid of you. We just can't afford to have that. We'd rather just have everybody on minimal contracts and let somebody else pay the price and then look back on it weeks or months from now and say, damn, DK Metcalf looks pretty damn good on the Green Bay Packers. They're winning a Super Bowl. And you're like, well, we should have paid him. And it's like, well, it didn't leverage against our greedy ass organization, so we had to cut ties with them. So I find that to be interesting. And then you compare that with like the Minnesota Vikings, like I mentioned earlier, and it's just like the difference between organizations and what they value. They seem to always value the thing that leverages them. Unless you're a team like the Philadelphia Eagles, where they are completely open to paying everybody and somehow still being under the cap, or they have to pay, according to front office sports, like they're going to have to pay a penalty for being over the cap or whatnot. It's like, so what? They're holding a Lombardi trophy. You're telling me that you have to pay a small fee because you went over the cap, but you still get to win a Lombardi trophy? So what do they do in response to that? Well, they cut ties with 34-year-old Darius Slay. They cut ties with 30-plus-year-old James Bradbury, the two cornerbacks that helped him win a Super Bowl, which they're getting older. It makes sense. They extended Saquon Barkley as a reward, and they're going to continue with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Jalen Hurts, the quarterback, the head coach, and the top 5 offensive line, and continue to be a front runner in the NFC. They have a formula to where I think Howie Roseman goes, I want to attract the best talent and bring them into Philadelphia. And I don't really care what the price is. I want to pay them what they're worth, unless you're Hassan Reddick. And I want to win championships that way, because the best players win championships as long as we get a coach and a culture around that team that is constructed towards, brotherhood, constructed towards uniformity. And so I find that to be interesting, because almost every team, of course, that's the reason they're different teams, but almost every different team does it a different way. And I've done all of this kind of Shatter the Script segment, not even to mention the Dallas Cowboys, which I won't. But if you've heard my previous podcast, you know exactly how I feel about that organization and how greedy they can be with contracts, but then how they also want to showcase, like, we can pay top dollar. And it's almost like, yeah, we can pay top dollar at edge, quarterback, receiver, and running back because it sells headlines and because they break market price. And we set the new value for these positions. But then in 3-4 years' time, they're behind in the market. So it's an interesting approach. Every team does it a different way. But I find it to be that loyalty has nothing to do with it. It's all about financial leverage. All of it's about financial leverage because it's a business. So furthermore, you look at more of the narrative where veterans are treated with respect for their tenure, even if they're released, thank you for your service type of thing. And the reality of it is teams often dumps players unceremoniously, leaving them to scramble for new deals or to retire because there isn't a market for them. Like, imagine if Adam Thielen for the Panthers was released. It's like, well, where the hell is he going to go? We've got 3 former Dallas Cowboys that are sitting in free agency, and I don't know what their market is, but they're not going to be treated with the same type of respect that they had when they were loyal to a team. They got to find a new home. And so I think the Shatter the Script statement, to just kind of sum up that entire segment, is that the NFL isn't about loyalty. It's about leverage. Teams like the Vikings ditch a, resurgent Darnold, not because they're devoted to McCarthy, which I would argue that they are, but because his rookie deal is 4 years, $21.8 million. It's cheaper than paying Sam Darnold 3 years, $180 million, $60 million a year, because that's market price. Thanks, Dak Prescott and Jerry Jones, right? So that's dirt cheap compared to Darnold's, looming like at least 30 million annual market value. And then you got veterans like, Emmitt Smith in the past, or Peyton Manning in the past, or Aaron Rodgers at 41 years old. They get discarded when their cap hits outpace their output. Not because their service is forgotten, it's just because leverage dictates that to cut ties. And the script says teams build legacies with players. The truth is they build balance sheets. Fans romanticize loyalty, but front offices operate like stock traders. Buy low, sell high, cut losses. And that's the end all be all right there. All right. First segment completed of season 3. Hope you guys enjoyed that. And obviously, shattering the script is not easy, but I figured, going with factual evidence is the funnest way to do it. And I think that a lot of people aren't thinking about this, that different teams do it different ways. And I apologize if you guys can hear children screaming in the background. I promise there isn't a fucking closet full of them. There is I've recorded this at home. Next door, there's just a bunch of kids swimming in the pool because it's March and it's 85 degrees and the pool probably feels nice. And right after this episode, I'll probably go over there and jump in. But they're having fun. But the reason you buy a nice microphone so it doesn't catch that kind of noise, hopefully it's not. I'll check after the episode. Thank you. All right. Top 5 sci-fi movies. This is an interesting one. Without using Interstellar. And I think I wanted to have fun with this list. Obviously not putting Interstellar in there is one way to have fun with it. But I think that people have like their prime time, these are your 5 that you must have in it. And I think I have my reasonings behind my top 5. Whether it be quoting from it, whether it be the lifestyle of it, whether it be just a damn good movie or different reasons, I'll go into each one. So we're going to start with the honorable mention and then go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Again, not using Interstellar, top 5 sci-fi movies of all time. All right, honorable mention number 1. I've got Edge of Tomorrow. This is Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt. Now, this is, if you haven't seen this one, it's basically Tom Cruise. There's aliens have invaded the Earth, right? And they're trying to figure out how to win. And throughout the entire movie, the aliens are one step ahead of the humans because, of course, they are. But Tom Cruise, the main protagonist, links up with an alien neurologically to where he relives the same day over and over and over again. And they figured out that is the key to winning the war. Where Emily Blunt steps in where she used to have that quote unquote power. And so they work together to figure out ways so where they can beat the aliens and win the war. And so it has a really cool twist at the end. It's very fun to watch. The reason I have an honorable mention, because it's probably not the best or in the top 6, top 5, is because Emily Blunt is so freaking hot in that movie. I had to rethink my top 5 women of all time. Emily Blunt is one doll. I tell you that. I tell you. I was watching that and I'm thinking to myself, we need more of this in movies. Not like the South Park, put a chick in it and make it gay. That's not like that. This was for the eyes of your white American conservative eyes. This was like Looney Tune character worthy, hearts banging out the eyes, sound effects, ears puffing. Let's get down to business. I'm locked in. It might be a Thursday afternoon after work and I've got things to do, but Emily Blunt looks incredible. So that's number 6. That's the honorable mention. Number 5. This is an interesting one. I had to think about this one because there's only so many slots. But this might be one that no one has seen. Maybe so. I don't know. I feel like some movies I'm like, maybe it's just me that's seen it. I've got iRobot at number 5. This is starring Will Smith. Shia LaBeouf is in this movie as a youngster, but this movie's great. I get like nostalgic when I watch it because I remember watching it. As a family, used to go to Big Cedar Lodge, and on the way there, we used to have a GMC Denali that would have like a DVD player in it. We'd throw iRobot in there because it was like our family's favorite. And Will Smith's out there just taking out robots left and right, and they basically go rogue. It's a world where like the robots help everyone, and they turn rogue. But there's this one that has conscience that thinks that he is human when he is truly not. That he might be the chosen one, and you know that classic story. So it's got a really fun ending to it. It's intense, it's adventurous, it's constant, it's intensified. Will Smith does a pretty good job. Jada Pinkett, G.I. Jane, she is not in the movie, but it's fantastic. It's a fantastic watch. It was made in early 2000s, I believe. Number 4, this one has a special place in my heart because one of my favorite actors, Mel Gibson, stars in this movie with another great actor, Joaquin Phoenix. And so the movie is called Signs. Now, I'm going to start talking about this movie and get chills. But Signs is one of the most eerie but religiously moving movies I have ever watched. And essentially, it is about a broken man who has lost his wife in a car accident, in a tragic death. And he was a preacher. And because his wife died, he rejected God. He hated him. He stopped preaching. He didn't ever want to talk about it with his kids. And the uncle, his brother, Joaquin Phoenix, is a retired baseball player. And so all these things, the kid having his Mel Gibson's son in the movie having asthma, the daughter wanting a glass of water before she goes to bed, and all this has something to do with the story, the signs. Read the signs. God provides signs in life to help you succeed, thrive, and all this different stuff. And it all matters at the end. You have to pay attention to all the different signs. And it connects the dots in this emotional, religious way to say, kind of like the strife that humans have with God himself and how he can prove his existence, even when you think that you've lost a relationship with him. And then there's aliens in the movie that are creepy as all get out. So picture that in the middle of a cornfield, of course, and just this religiously, emotionally moving movie to really make you think about the signs that you might see in your own life. So Signs is number 4. God, that ending. I got chills just explaining it. The movie is phenomenal. Phenomenal. You got to watch it. Watch it with your girlfriend. Watch it with your wife. It's a pretty appropriate movie too. So it's got some funny scenes to it. But this is, I'm telling you, top dog. I probably could have ranked it higher, but I feel like the top 3 gets interesting. Now, number 3, Transformers 2007. And if you're a straight male like me, you know exactly why the hell I'm choosing Transformers 2007, starring Shia LaBeouf and none other than Megan Fox. I'm telling you what, I gave advice to both my brothers who have 2 newborn baby boys. Praise God. Both healthy, both adorable looking kids. And I said, look, in an environment, in a political landscape where you are basically taught to be not a man and that they want to do sex changes and all this stuff to your young kids, trolling them, kind of like scaring the living crap out of them as they're raising these newborns, which I know nothing about, but just being a good, fun uncle, basically, and saying, you got to watch out for these damn liberals in the school systems and whatnot, making your son turn into one of them gays. And it's like, one way to fix it, way to make sure and guarantee that your son turns out to be straight for the rest of his life? You make him watch Transformers 2007, directed by Michael Bay, at the age of 10. when they're starting to get kind of confused of why certain things are happening to their body, maybe like 11 or 12, and they're like, I'm not sure what to feel. I think I have a crush on this one girl at school. And then you show Megan Fox and they get just this beautiful reality of like why women are like the greatest thing ever created on this planet Earth. And I'm telling you, he'll be straight the rest of his life. Now, there are other movies you can do this too. Wolf of Wall Street would be another one. Anyone But You with Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney. True Detective, the certain episode in that with Alexandria Daddario. Transformers 3 with Rosie Huntington-Whiteley. I could go all day. Friends with Jennifer Aniston. You can go all day. The beginning scene of Longest Yard with Courtney Cox, who played Monica in Friends. There are different ways you could guarantee that your son walks a straight path. All right, number 2, Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Now, if you get the same algorithm I get on X, on Instagram, and all this different stuff, you absolutely have a soft spot for Revenge of the Sith. Star Wars episode, like the first 3 episodes, the prequels, if you will, are not the best scripted. You know, those scripts need a lot of work. They were cheesy, but they were fun and they were interesting. And the story from Phantom Menace to Attack of the Clones to Revenge of the Sith is so underrated for the buildup of Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker, to kind of show why Darth Vader was the way he was in the sequels made in the 1980s. And it has the best cinematography and the best lightsaber duel to this date between Anakin and Obi-Wan, his master. And Anakin struggles between, if you know about Jedis are not allowed to be in love. It's against their quote unquote religion they have to set aside their love for specific others and partners and whatnot, and just basically direct all of their force and energy to good. And so it's kind of an ironic and complex story what a Jedi is versus the Sith, but it's all about the balance. Well, Anakin falls short of this. Anakin, and I don't freaking blame him, because this is another example of why you should make your kids, specifically your sons, watch Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, is because Natalie Portman, aka Padme, is stunning in all 3 episodes. And so Anakin falls in love with Padme, and then they eventually have kids. He starts to have visions, right? Visions of death, despair, that he lost his mom and just went all rageful and killed the Tusken Raiders. And then in episode 3, he's having visions of, I lost my mom. Now I'm going to lose Padme with child. And he's just haunted by these visions. And so he turns to somebody who guarantees that with the power of the Force, through the dark side, that Anakin can save Padme. And through that comes the downfall of Anakin, to where he thinks he has nowhere to turn but to the dark side, and that ultimate power can save one from certain death. And it is the breakup of a beautiful relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin from the Force, and a lead up into the sequels of Darth Vader, the greatest villain of all time. Revenge of the Sith, number 2. Now, number 1. This one is kind of like a real one. Like, this is genuinely my number 1 sci-fi movie. And that's Blade Runner 2049, starring Ryan Gosling and Harrison Ford. Now, this movie, I found the plot of this movie to be astronomically hilarious. Hilarious in an emotional way. But like the storyline, Blade Runner's always been kind of a strange sci-fi. I mean, the previous ones were Harrison Ford. I think there were 2 of them. And it was really interesting. It was kind of ahead of its time. Everything was super sci-fi, cybernetic type environment where everything's dark, everything's rainy. The electronics or the technology of the time is so far advanced that we can't really grasp if that was going to be reality or not. And it was just like a weird perspective, right? Well, then 2049 came out, directed by Denis Villeneuve, I think. I think that's how you say his name. But Ryan Gosling does a phenomenal job. And he's basically an android who hunts down old replicants, if you will. And it gives you like a preview at the beginning of the movie of kind of what the replicants are and how the newer models are kind of hunting down the old ones. And this is what you call a Blade Runner. And Ryan Gosling is that model. And so he is trifled with an identity crisis to where he experiences, through an investigation of a very important asset, he experiences authentic memories that he is so unfamiliar with that he starts to believe that he's human, that he isn't an android, that he has feelings, that he has a soul. And he is troubled with this throughout the movie and goes through all these signs and clues and investigative scenes where he's like, I think I might be this chosen one that they're looking for. And I think the astronomically hilarious narrative of the movie that I find so great is that the whole movie is based upon Ryan Gosling thinking that he is larger than life, that he is important, that he is someone to be remembered, only to find out that he isn't any of those things, and that what he was doing the entire time was sacrificing for someone else that was special along the way. And it's just kind of like hilarious to me that someone, because it seems like real life, where you're like, I could make something of myself. I am somebody. Here it is. Let's go chase it. I've got the clues. I've got the memories. It seems authentic. And then just boom, you're hit with a 401k and 3 credit cards, a family. You're in a suburban household with a minivan. And you're like, well, fuck. Like, I thought this whole time I was special. I was somebody. And then he dies a sacrificial death. Allegedly, he could have survived. And it's just, there's a scene in the movie where he figures out that he's a no one, that it wasn't him the entire time, and he just loses it. And I just think this is the reason why men drink alcohol, and we just kind of like slowly do things that kill us softly, whether it be nicotine or cigarettes or alcohol or driving off cliffs and drifting in cars and doing crazy tricks on the wakeboard on the lake and snorting medicinal cocaine, like all these different things. It's just to slowly kill us off because we figured out we weren't important enough to live the rest of our lives. Which is why you get religion and, you follow Christ, because he makes you feel special in all seriousness. Okay, so that was my top 5. Kind of an extended period of time there, but I figured you guys could need the context. Okay. Now, part 2, segment 3. This is ESPN and MLB's television breakup, and I'm just going to kind of like read an outline for you guys after I take a swig of water. Sorry, Turner. The financial details and whatnot. So, ESPN and MLB basically decided they had a 6-year contract that started in 2021. They've been together since 1990, covering, I think, 40 to 50 MLB games annually. And so it's reportedly fracturing as of early 2025. They want to terminate the contract per MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred. With there's no explicit confirmation in the provided data, but we're just going to assume it. The technology I use to kind of sum up this data, it thinks it's not true, which is interesting because it is. But the previous deal, MLB contract signed in 2012 and running through 2021, it was worth $5.6 million over 8 years, about $700 million annually for rights to Sunday Night Baseball, postseason games, and highlights. Now, a kind of quick shatter the script statement here. ESPN does a flat out terrible job of commentating MLB games. I think they do a really crappy job. And you can find MLB games, they do like ESPN Plus, Bally Sports for Southwest teams and whatnot. And then you can find like Hulu has live sports. Some show up on Prime, some show up on Apple TV. They're kind of scattered across. I mean, hell, it's 162 games per year for 30 different teams, and they play almost every day. So you have to be on multiple different platforms. And I think it's very selective. Personally, you have a fan team, a fan favorite team. Yeah, there might be a fun matchup on, but I don't think people are invested so much in, the Yankees and Boston Red Sox on, Sunday Night Baseball. Whereas, you want to just kind of keep track and watch your teams because you just like your team. And so 2025 context with no renewal specifics in this that have been, brought up between ESPN and MLB, they couldn't agree on a new figure currently. And so the industry trends suggest ESPN might have balked at a price hike given cord cutting and Disney's push towards streaming on ESPN Plus for MLB games. MLB likely sought $800 million to $1 billion annually, reflecting inflation and competition from tech giants. Now, the revenue impact on this is that ESPN's MLB package drove ad revenue. So Sunday Night Baseball averaged 1.5 to 2 million viewers per game in recent years. And then losing this could cost ESPN $100 million or more in yearly ad sales, offset by, reallocating funds to like NBA or NFL deals. And so that's kind of the moral of the story, is that ESPN is basically and Rob Manfred, the commissioner of the MLB, is upset that basically ESPN has treated the MLB like shit, and they're allocating their funds. ESPN is allocating their funds more directed towards the NBA and the MLB. And so, my shadow the script statement on that is that rather than covering America's pastime, with long-time premier brands like the New York Yankees, the Boston Red Sox, the Chicago Cubs, and all these different teams, and there's a lot you can do with MLB as the game is changing, right? And there's nothing better. There's not a lot better than going to a baseball game in person, grabbing a hot dog and a large beer, and eating your kids eating ice cream out of a helmet. Like, that's what baseball is truly created for, in my opinion. But rather than choose to cover something like that, where the game of baseball can be a beautiful thing, and anything can happen, and it's an individual team sport, they chose to lean towards the NBA, which is a failing industry right now. No one's watching the NBA anymore. The culture of NBA has shattered. We saw this, if you weren't aware of the headlines, where LeBron and Bronny, through nepotism, allowed Bronny to enter the NBA and took away qualifying prospects, or a qualifying prospect to join an NBA roster, just so LeBron could play for his son for clicks. And Bronny is arguably the worst NBA player in the league. And so LeBron confronts Stephen A. Smith, who was doing its job to basically say, keep my son's name out your effing mouth. And Stephen A. Smith, who just got a large multi-million-dollar extension, I think it was over $100 million over 5 years, to work with ESPN more, is now being butchered by LeBron in person, and Stephen A's like talking apologetic about it on TV and then breaking down what actually happened. It is such a bitch and soft move from LeBron James, knowing that when you put your son in the NBA, he's a grown man and he can handle his own PR, and he is responsible for being a good professional athlete, or else he'll get criticism, especially with a name like Bronny James, the son of LeBron James, playing on the same team as LeBron James for a notorious brand like the Los Angeles Lakers. I mean, I couldn't believe it, but we're not here to talk about that. ESPN's choosing to focus on NBA and NFL, which I think is a bad move. Why not have all three, right? But they want to focus on NBA, which is a failing industry. Adam Silver has been doing a tremendously bad job. They're basically burdened with low viewership, low ratings, and nobody wants to watch. As you know, there is no passion, there is no loyalty in the games. A player could play for a team for 1 year, then plays for another team for 2 years, and goes back to the same team for a year, and it's all about the power teams. I just don't understand why they would want to do that versus the alternative, you know? And so we'll read into the Sports Illustrated article about MLB and ESPN agreeing to drop national TV contract following the 2025 season. So this is going to give MLB ample time to kind of find a better alternative, whether it be from through Amazon Prime or Amazon, NBC Sports, CBS. There are going to be larger tech giant networks that would gladly take up the MLB as their prime candidate and start to drive revenue. So now it appears MLB will enter the 2026 campaign as a free agent looking to land a new national television deal. The Athletic's Evan Drellich reported Thursday that MLB and ESPN have mutually agreed to end their national television contract after the 2025 season. In a letter obtained by the Athletic, MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred noted that the league has, quote, not been pleased with the minimal coverage that MLB has received on ESPN's platform over the past several years outside of the actual live game coverage. However, a future deal between MLB and ESPN is not out of the question. MLB opted out of the contract and was set to run through 2028. The full partnership, which includes ESPN's Sunday Night Baseball and its wild card round playoff coverage, will continue in this final season before termination. The sports network was looking for MLB to accept a lower rights fee instead of the $550 million average value in place. Drellich noted how ESPN was trying to get MLB to change the price as the market has changed. For instance, Apple is paying $85 million per year for baseball rights, while Roku pays $10 million per season. So basically, they wanted to reallocate the funds and basically compare it to restructuring a contract in NFL terms to create cap space. ESPN was trying to do this with MLB and basically saying, and it goes back to my first segment of the podcast, your production isn't to par, so we're going to restructure your contract or cut ties because you're not putting up the numbers as necessary, which is ironic because when you focus on a network or an organization like the NBA, which is doing, I would want to say, far less great than the MLB, it's kind of ironic to say that the MLB isn't producing the numbers that they promise, whereas at the same time, the ESPN is not promoting the MLB in any sort of way that is relevant. They do Sunday Night Baseball once a week and then some playoff round coverage, but with 162 games a year, the rest of those games, where do they go? Where can people find those games? And I guarantee if ESPN, I know they have ESPN Plus and whatnot, but ESPN does a really bad job of finding easy ways to watch your favorite team play. And I understand that not every game should be available every single day. And ESPN Plus, I would assume, would have the money to provide that. But I'm honestly happy that MLB is breaking their partnership with ESPN. I think there's better ways to get your sport out there than ESPN, who really hates baseball, in my opinion. I don't think they've done anything to propel the MLB industry. All right, so quote, over the past several months, ESPN has approached us with a desire to reduce the amount they pay for MLB content over the remainder of the term, end quote. Manfred wrote in the letter, quote, publicly and privately, ESPN has pointed to lower rights fees paid by Apple and Roku and their deals with MLB. We believe arguments based on the Apple and Roku deals are inept, and we have rejected ESPN's aggressive effort to reduce rights fees for several reasons. First, the inventory involved in the Apple and Roku deals is very different from the ESPN inventory. The ESPN deal contains the only true exclusive regular season windows on Sunday nights, the exclusive right to an entire round of playoffs, and the Home Run Derby, one of the most exciting events of the summer. In contrast, Apple and Roku have games that compete against a complete slate of other games broadcast in local markets. Keyword, local markets. Then ESPN released a statement shortly after that news dropped in the letter provided by Rob Manfred, where here's what they said. We are grateful for our long-standing relationship with Major League Baseball and proud of how ESPN's coverage super serves fans. In making this decision, we applied the same discipline and fiscal responsibility that has built ESPN's industry-leading live events portfolio as we continue to grow our audience across linear, digital, and social platforms. As we have been throughout the process, we remain open to exploring new ways to serve MLB fans across our platforms beyond 2025. So basically, they got a 29-year-old intern at ESPN to write up a PR statement and said, just say something that's open-ending and broad, and nobody gives a shit what the statement actually says, but we need a statement out there. And it basically means nothing. The whole gist of this is that ESPN has mistreated the MLB, and the MLB, in addition to that, has mistreated themselves. But I think the more dominating factor here is that ESPN has been really greedy and grimy with their deal to basically say, you're not producing the production, but at the same time, we're not producing production ourselves because we're not showcasing the MLB often. We're doing it once a week with some additional features. But the MLB, the new rules you're implementing, the way that your season is structured, there have been arguments about reducing the season length, to less than 162 games, and whatnot. And so I think both have done a bad job. I really do. But I think it's more telling that ESPN has done a bad job because they're in charge of broadcasting the sport. And so if you get your message across out there, like NFL, that's an undying industry, right? And then NBA, like, it's pretty fast paced. I know the television ratings are down. That's because the NBA culture has failed itself. Well, MLB, the culture has not changed in MLB. There is loyalty. You get long-term contract extensions these days, 10 to 13 years and whatnot, big-time contracts. The Mets, the Yankees, the Boston Red Sox, all those different teams are top dollar in spending and whatnot. And they've done a really bad job of basically there is no middle class in the MLB. It's only the top dogs who spend on everybody, like the Dodgers, who you're like, oh, this guy is hitting the market. Well, guess what? The Dodgers are paying this guy, top dollar price. Well, the Athletics and the Indians and the Baltimore Orioles can't do that. They get young prospects every year, bring them up, make them relevant, trade them off to a big branded organization, and then they go back to being shit for another 5 to 6 years. And the Orioles right now are a prime example of that. They got Alan Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, and all these different young cats. And then eventually those young cats are going to want a contract extension, and they're going to get traded to the Dodgers, Red Sox, and teams they can pay. So that's the brand that MLB has created. They have to find a way to financially fix that. And so those two things, I think, are the separating factor. ESPN does a horrible job of producing live television games annually to where now they're blaming it on the MLB for saying, well, you're not producing enough. It's like, well, you're not producing yourself either. So it's this big argument, a long break in a long conference boardroom. And then the MLB has done a terrible job strategically accumulating like this brand where everyone can pay for their players, and it's not 16 teams are playing Moneyball and 16 other teams can pay. So, and that could be GM issues, that could be wanting to play under the market and have enough space so they can do bigger stadiums, they can do bigger events, and I get it. There's a bunch of different moving parts, and it's all a moving industry, but that's my takeaway from this, and that's kind of my shadow of the script statement on it. But we'll go back into why it matters, I guess. Baseball's TV presence has waned. Average World Series viewership dropped below 10 million in 2024 per Sports Media Watch, down from 20 million plus in the 1990s. ESPN's Sunday night slot was a lifeline, but its rigid format, one game, late start, didn't adapt to modern viewing habits. So the MLB needs providers who prioritize accessibility and innovation, which I couldn't agree with more. And new players could come into to provide a deal. Amazon, Apple, and Netflix have cash, and ambition. Amazon's Thursday Night Football averages 12 million viewers. Apple's MLS deal showcases global reach. A $1 billion annual package with Amazon could feature 100-plus games on Prime with dynamic scheduling. Think Saturday afternoon doubleheaders to hook younger fans. I think that's the avenue for success for the MLB. I think Amazon is probably the best fit. And obviously, almost everybody in the United States and across the world has Netflix. So if you could do a pack, and Netflix has been super ambitious to get into the sports world. They want to cover more NFL games. I think Netflix is probably yanking at the chain to get MLB on their services. So to have Netflix broadcast, packages for weekend games, and then have Amazon do midweek games, kind of like a Thursday night deal. You would just kind of need to fill in the gaps there. But I think both those, Amazon and Netflix, would be super eager, to set MLB up with some weekly packages to get fans like me and fans, older than me and families going, well, we have the subscription and we can watch these games. Let me just flip on my TV right now or screencast it somewhere on the go and get with it, rather than paying Disney money, which no one seems to want to do anymore. So, and nobody wants to fire up Disney Plus to play a football game or a baseball game or whatnot. But they might want to fire up Netflix because, well, Netflix is probably the biggest subscription industry on the planet. So I think that's good. I think that's going to be an interesting move. And I think, MLB TV will have a larger market because there'll be an increased demand to watch the game and people want to know where to go with the games. Now, I'm not sure how this relates to like college baseball, but college baseball with ESPN is diabolically horrible to find. There's nothing. You have to scroll to find college baseball down there. And then they're only relevant when the Road to Omaha comes around. When the College Baseball World Series comes around, that's when their games are televised. But you still have to you can't watch all the games on there. They're very selective with it. And I think that's annoying because college baseball, there is a fandom for that, where people want to be engaged with the show. So there'll be different avenues to fix that within the coming year. We'll see how 2025 shakes, but I think 2026 will be interesting to see what MLB does with their rights to televise their game. And they have a lot of work to do. So that'll be interesting. All right. Now, with those two primary segments in place, I could now do the final segment of today's show. And that is asking Grok, the AI for Twitter or X, to list a random athlete and I blindly rank them in my top 5. And I got my little notepad here to write down my top 5 and whatnot. Let's go into it. Now, this is pretty interesting. A lot of times it gives me good athletes because I've tested this out. I've done a trial run on this. So I'd be interested to see what it does with these athletes. So, athlete number 1. Name a random athlete. See what it does. Oh my God. First on the board. Oh shit. Usain Bolt. The Jamaican. Usain Bolt. God dang it. That is tough. No one's beat him in the Olympics. You're damn right. Sweden in the Olympics. Oh God, dude. I don't know what else is going to come in here. I got to put Usain Bolt at, I can't use it in number 1 slot. I got to put Usain Bolt at 2. Usain Bolt will land, the first athlete, Usain Bolt will land at number 2. Now, widely one of the greatest athletes of all time, holding world records in the 100-meter and the 200-meter dashes. Every time you watch the Olympics and Usain Bolt was there, that motherfucker would just clear the area, blow you out of the water every year. And we always had some USA guy be like, yeah, I can beat him, and then finish in 4th. And you're like, well, at least we got 4th. So all they got to do over there in Jamaica is run. I mean, there's natural disasters and whatnot. There's poverty, and it's just like, might as well just freaking run from it. So there's no doubt in my mind that Usain Bolt is just the best at running. All right. Name another. What are we doing? What are we doing? Why are we doing? I got to test this because it just gave me Simone Biles. I feel like it's on this trend of Olympic gold medalist. She wouldn't be ranked on mine. We're just going to name another random athlete. We're going to do that because I think it's messed up. 1 second. Okay, there we go. Back on track. If I had to rank Simone Biles, she would definitely be at least number 5. At the highest number 5. I just dislike her. I think she's a quitter, but people are like, "Oh, you need break." But dude, you show up to the Olympics every 4 to 8 years or whatever it is. Perform. Okay, Lionel Messi is athlete number 2. Okay, the Argentino footballer is often hailed as one of the best soccer players ever, known for his jaw-dropping, dribbling vision in a trophy cabinet that's overflowing, including a World Cup win in 2022. Lionel Messi. Look, I'm not a big soccer guy, but I know him and Cristiano Ronaldo and people like that, and like those cats. You talk about global reach, right? Soccer, anybody in the world can find a dirt mound and just kick a ball back and forth to each other. That's why the sport's so big. Is it the best sport on the planet? Absolutely not. But soccer has a global industry where it could be played in America, it could be played in Europe. The World Cup is huge because all of these countries around the world are so invested in continents, are so invested in kicking a ball to each other. But Lionel Messi is absolutely incredible. But since I'm not a soccer guy, I'm going to put him at number 4. Messi enters at number 4. And if I have soccer fans listening to that, you're going to probably order a Sicario on me, which is a Spanish for hitman. All right. Athlete number 4, or number 3. Why does it likes this person a lot? Serena Williams is athlete number 3. I'm going to go ahead and cut that one short. Man, she's damn good. You know what? Yeah, I'm going to stick with my gut here. I'm going to put her at 5. Serena Williams enters at number 5, and that's because she was crip dancing or whatever you want to call it at this halftime at Super Bowl. I found that to be unnecessary. You're dating an absolute mashed potato of a white dude, and then you're still like crip walking on your ex Drake on live television. I think that's extremely. I mean, you care so much, dude, go back to him. So that one lost a lot of brownie points for me. One of the greatest female tennis players of all time, but you find yourself at number 5. So going into the final 2 athletes, you have Usain Bolt at 2, Lionel Messi at 4, and Serena Williams at 5. All right, name another random athlete. It loves the Olympics, but I think we found her number 1. All right, Michael Phelps. Now, the American swimmer is the most decorated Olympian of all time with 28 medals, 23 of them gold, earned across 5 Olympic Games, basically turning the pool into his personal trophy room. Okay, Grok, I see what you're doing. All right, Michael Phelps. We're going to have to categorize this next time. Name a random football player would be great, or a basketball player or whatnot. All right, so we've got 2 Olympians in the top 2. Michael Phelps, number 1. Usain Bolt, number 2. Lionel Messi at 4. Serena Williams at 5. And for the last one, O.J. Simpson. No, I'm playing. Okay, there we go. Now it wants to incorporate football. Tom Brady. Tom Brady finds himself at number 3. You know, and if I had to do this again with these 5 athletes. So the final list: Tom Brady, 7-time Super Bowl winner, played until he was like 42, 43 years old. Now he did a little broadcasting for Fox Sports, still is, and now is a minority owner for the Las Vegas Raiders, and doing a lot of work kind of restructuring Las Vegas to be a primetime spot in the NFL and a main attraction and a top dog organization. But Brady, I was a kind of a hater on when he was with the Patriots. I really advocated his defense all throughout those playoff runs. But, you know, once he went to the Buccaneers and proved me wrong and threw for like 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns, I was like, okay, you got me, Tom Brady. is no doubtably the GOAT of the NFL of his era. So if I had to do this again, I think I would put, honestly, I feel like I did a damn good job ranking these guys. Like Serena Williams at 5 makes sense. I feel like she's a great tennis player. Fantastic, right? I don't know all the details, but I feel like her at 5 is fair. Messi, I'm not a big soccer guy, but the dude's incredible talent-wise. I don't think he would be like top 3 on this list, but you get basically world record holders in the Olympics were like, he was unbeatable with Usain Bolt. Then you have the most records or the most medals of all time, and almost 90% of them being gold medals with Michael Phelps, and he's from America. You know, him being in the top 3 makes a lot of sense. And then the greatest NFL player of all time with Tom Brady in that top 3. I think this is a pretty good job. I don't really think I could reorganize this. Like, I feel like Michael Phelps and Usain Bolt's success surpasses Tom Brady on a national scale and on a global scale, to say the least. So I think this is a damn good list. Michael Phelps 1, Usain Bolt 2, Tom Brady 3, Lionel Messi 4, Serena Williams 5. Next time we'll do categorize, we'll like name a random baseball player and go from there, something like that, and we'll get into the nitty gritty, the nooks and crannies of it. So I think that's fun. I thought it was fun. I want to do that again. All right. Oh my gosh, are we glitching here? What's going on? All right, well, we might need to end this show before this thing blows up. All right, find us with the tag at Shatter the Script. You can find us on Patreon for crowdfunding. We are launching a website. We are launching an intro music for the beginning of these. Oh, that's why. Oh my gosh. No wonder. Oh my God. One moment, fellas. Oh my gosh. Okay. We have to cut that, but the battery was running low on the computer. That's a rookie mistake. That just proves that I haven't been on this microphone in a minute. Yeah. Okay. So hopefully that didn't just get all glitchy for like 20 minutes. But yeah, you can find us at Shatter the Script on all platforms. You know, we're on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and then we release video episodes on Spotify and YouTube. You can find our audio podcast on Apple. And then we, like I said, launched our Patreon crowdfunding application where you can tailor what you like about the show. You can do our Q&A. You can contribute to questions and answers. We will be having guest interviews starting this spring, which I'm super excited about, in person. I've got a few guests lined up that are ready to go and are excited. Some of them are local friends. Some of them might be, you know, former athletes and whatnot, and people that have built a life for themselves. And I really wanted to focus on unscripted stories and kind of interview and maybe have a little fun along the way. So hopefully you guys find that entertaining. So, all right. Season 3 is underway, my friends. Thank you guys very much for the support. I look forward to an exciting season 3, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your spring. So we'll see y'all weekly on the Shatter the Script Network. I'm your host, Jared May, and have a good time.